I'm lifting my glass for another toast when I hear my name from the hallway. The conversation drifts through the partially open door of my father's study, carried by my brother's voice. She finally has enough money to help save our family legacy. Dominic's words hit me like a physical blow. That promotion couldn't have come at a better time. My father's deeper voice follows. Let's not rush this. Clarissa's always been cautious with her finances. We've been discussing this for weeks, my mother says. The vineyard needs that investment now, not when she's ready. The wine glass slips from my fingers, shattering against the hardwood floor of the dining room. Cabernet splashes across my cream slacks and pools around the broken crystal, our family vineyard's signature vintage, now soaking into the centuries-old oak planks my great-grandfather installed. I stand frozen as the realization washes over me. This celebration dinner, supposedly to honor my promotion at Westbrook Design, was actually staged to soften me up. They've been planning to ask for my money. No, not ask. Expect. My hand trembles as I bend to collect the larger shards of glass. The cut on my finger barely registers as I try to process what I've just heard. $100,000. The exact amount I've saved for my cabin near Yosemite. When I was 12, I'd begged Dad to teach me about wine production alongside Dominic. I remember trailing after them toward the fermentation room, my notebook clutched in my hands. Clarissa, Dad had called over his shoulder. Your mother needs help in the kitchen. This is men's work. I'd watched from the window as he showed Dominic how to test the grapes, how to sense when they were ready for harvest. Later that night, Dominic's C- in science was celebrated with ice cream. My academic award certificate remained stuck to the refrigerator, unremarked. The memory burns as I rise, leaving the broken glass behind. My hands have stopped shaking by the time I push open the study door. 3 heads turn toward me. The silence stretches taut between us. What were you just saying about my finances? I ask, my voice steadier than I feel. Mother recovers first, her smile sliding into place. We're just proud of how well you're doing, dear. That promotion is quite an achievement. I notice something strange. My hands have completely stopped trembling. The familiar anxiety that usually churns in my stomach when confronting my family has quieted. In its place is something unfamiliar. Clarity. I know exactly what you were planning, I say. You've been discussing how to get my money for weeks. For Dominic's tasting room. Mother's smile falters. Dad's chair creaks as he straightens. Your brother has put his whole life into this vineyard, Dad says, his tone hardening. The Matthews name means something in this valley because of his dedication. Dominic leans against the mahogany desk, arms crossed. This isn't just about me. It's about our family legacy. The tasting room expansion could double our revenue. I calculate quickly in my head 6 years of careful saving, working weekends, taking on additional projects. 6 years of independence sacrificed for a brother who's never sacrificed anything for me. That money is for my cabin, I say, my investment in my future. Mother's lips press into a thin line. So you'd put a vacation home above family? It's not a vacation home, it's my future. I meet each of their eyes in turn. And this isn't about family, it's about bailing out Dominic. Again. Dad's face reddens. You've always been selfish, Clarissa. Always thinking about yourself instead of what this family has given you. The accusation hangs in the air between us. What this family has given me. Recognition that always came with conditions. Support that was never quite equal to what Dominic received. Love that felt earned, rather than given. I'm not giving you my money, I say, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. Not 1 cent. Dominic pushes away from the desk. Then maybe you shouldn't consider yourself part of this family's future. The threat lands exactly as intended. Exclusion, the ultimate punishment for failing to comply. For 3 decades, the fear of being cut off from my family has kept me obedient, kept me trying to earn the approval that Dominic receives simply for existing. I look at them, these people who raised me, who shaped me, who are now trying to use me, and something shifts inside my chest. The cost of staying in their good graces has finally become too high. I guess we'll see about that, I say, turning toward the door. Behind me, I hear my mother's sharp intake of breath, my father's muttered curse. But for the first time in my life, I don't look back to gauge their reaction. I don't try to smooth things over. I just keep walking. The next day, at my apartment, the email sits on my laptop screen, its words burning into my retinas like acid. I stagger backward into my desk chair, stomach lurching as though I've been physically struck. Regarding strategies to secure Clarissa's contribution, reads the subject line. The message is from my father to our family financial advisor who forwarded it to me, with my mother and brother copied. Paul, we need to present this as an opportunity, not a request, my father wrote. Clarissa has always been cautious with her money, too cautious, if you ask me. The promotion puts her in a position where she can finally contribute to the family legacy. We're thinking $100,000 for a 10% stake. My mother's reply follows. Remember to emphasize the family aspect. She's always wanted to be included. The final punch comes from Dominic. Let's call it Dominic's tasting room in the official paperwork. After all, I'm the one who's kept this place going while she's been building her little career. My hands shake as I scroll through weeks of correspondence. They've been planning this ambush for months, calculating the exact moment when my promotion would make me financially viable to them. Not as a daughter or sister, as a resource. I print everything, tucking the pages into a folder. Evidence. The next morning, I park across from the Hartwell & Sons law office, watching my family file inside. They don't know I'm here. After Sunday's confrontation, Mother left 3 voicemails insisting we talk through this misunderstanding like adults. Father hasn't called at all. Through the glass storefront, I can see them arranging themselves around the massive oak table in the conference room. Mother smooths her skirt, Father checks his watch, and Dominic spreads papers across the polished surface. Aunt Martha sits stiffly beside them, her hands folded in her lap. The investment documents are centered precisely in front of an empty chair. My chair. I don't go inside. Instead, I call the office from my car. This is Clarissa Matthews. I'll be joining the meeting by phone only. I'm connected to the speakerphone in the conference room. Clarissa, darling. What's this nonsense? Just come inside. Mother says. I'd prefer to have this conversation with some distance, I reply, surprising myself with my steady voice. Roger Hartwell, our family lawyer since before I was born, clears his throat. Well, we're here to discuss the investment opportunity in Matthews Family Vineyards. Specifically, the expansion project for Dominic's tasting room. I finish for him. Yes, I've seen the emails. A weighted silence falls over the line. Those were private communications. My father finally says, his voice tight. About me. Without me. I take a deep breath. How many other family members have you approached for money? Another silence. Then Aunt Martha speaks, her voice smaller than I've ever heard it. They got $50,000 from me last year. For new fermentation equipment. She pauses. The equipment was never purchased. That was different, Dominic interjects. We had unexpected costs with the irrigation system, but this time it's different. The tasting room will transform our revenue stream. Dominic interjects with Dominic. Like the wine club transformed it 3 years ago? Aunt Martha asks quietly. Or the online store before that? Through the window, I watch Dominic's face redden. My phone buzzes with incoming texts. Uncle Robert. Don't let them pressure you, Clarissa. Cousin Stephanie. Are you going to do your part for the family legacy? Grandmother's nurse. Your grandmother hopes you'll consider what family unity means to her at her age. The subtext is clear. Refuse, and I risk losing my relationship with my 7-year-old grandmother, who still believes in family unity above all else. The thought sends a pang through my chest. I do quick mental calculations as the conversation continues in the background. 6 years of saving, thousands of hours of overtime. If I give them what they want, I'll need at least 4 more years to rebuild my savings. 4 years of delaying my own dreams for Dominic's EDI. I need to go, I say abruptly. I have a meeting. Clarissa, wait. Mother begins, but I've already ended the call. At Westbrook Design, I bury myself in work, trying not to think about the weight of family expectations crushing me from 40 miles away. Just before lunch, Elaine, my boss, stops by my desk. You okay? You seem distracted. Her eyes, sharp behind stylish frames, assess me with genuine concern. Family stuff. I say, attempting a smile. She nods, then glances at the Yosemite cabin, listing partially hidden beneath my drafting papers. That the property you've been saving for? Yes, but my family. They want me to invest in my brother's vineyard expansion instead. Elaine leans against my desk. You know, when I recommended you for promotion, there were 3 other candidates. You weren't the most senior, but you were the most deserving. She taps my latest project proposal. Your promotion wasn't luck, Clarissa. It was earned. Something loosens in my chest at her words. One small moment of validation in a lifetime of being overlooked. As I drive home that evening, I wonder if protecting my financial future is worth the family relationships I might lose. Should I stand firm against decades of favoritism, or make one sacrifice to keep peace with the only family I have? The cabin listing sits on the passenger seat beside me, its promise of independence almost tangible. On my phone, 3 more missed calls from my mother. I turn toward home, decision still unmade. The next day at work, the notification pings while I'm reviewing blueprints at my desk. I ignored it at first, focused on the structural modifications for the Peterson project. When my phone buzzes a second time, I glance down. A string of alerts from Facebook. Odd. I tap the screen and freeze. Dominic's latest post fills my display, a sunset photograph of our family vineyard, rows of carefully tended vines stretching toward distant mountains. Below it, his caption reads, "Family support makes dreams come true. Excited to announce expansion plans for Matthew's Vineyard. Family legacy. Vineyard life." Comments flood the post. Cousin Melissa, so proud of you carrying on the Matthews tradition. Aunt Joanne, a good sister always supports her brother. Family first. Uncle Stephen, can't wait to see the tasting room with your name on it. My fingers hover over the screen. They've all assumed I'm part of this. Without my consent or even my knowledge, I've been cast as the supportive sister bankrolling my brother's vanity project. I close Facebook before I type something I'll regret. The office phone rings. I answer without checking the caller ID. "Clarissa? It's your mother." My shoulders tense instantly. "I'm at work, Mom." "This will only take a moment. Your father and I are hosting a family reunion next weekend at the Vineyard. Dominic will be presenting his expansion vision to everyone. We expect you there, of course." Not a request, a summons. The familiar pressure builds in my chest. I'll have to check my schedule, I say, knowing it won't matter what conflicts I cite. "Family comes first, Clarissa. Saturday at 4. She hangs up before I can respond. My hand trembles slightly as I place the receiver down. They're escalating, moving this from private manipulation to public pressure. The reunion isn't about family, it's about cornering me in front of witnesses. When my cell phone rings 20 minutes later, I nearly jump out of my skin. The area code matches my hometown. I let it go to voicemail. The same thing happens twice more that afternoon, calls from my family's area code that I can't bring myself to answer. By the third call, my heart races at the mere sound of the ringtone. I silence my phone completely. Later that evening, I check my voicemail. The first is from my bank. My mortgage officer, Mike Belton, sounds oddly hesitant. "Miss Matthews, we need to discuss your pre-approval for the Yosemite property. Some concerns have been raised about your financial commitments. Please call me back as soon as possible." The room tilts slightly. Concerns? What concerns? The second message clarifies everything. Uncle Robert's voice. "Clarissa, just had a nice chat with Mike Belton. We go way back to high school. Mentioned you might be overextending yourself with this cabin idea while the family business needs support. Call me." I sink onto my couch, nausea rising. They're sabotaging my mortgage. My own family is actively working to destroy my financial future to secure their own. For the next hour, I methodically document every communication, screenshots of Dominic's post and the comments, my mother's call, the voicemails. I send an email to my bank, requesting all interactions regarding my mortgage application be conducted in writing and password protected. I change every password on my financial accounts. I contact the credit bureaus to place alerts on my credit reports. By midnight, my dining table is covered with papers, financial records, property information, loan documents. I'm constructing a fortress around my savings, brick by meticulous brick. My phone rings again. Unknown number. I almost ignore it, but something makes me answer. "Clarissa? It's Sandra, your real estate agent." My grip tightens on the phone. "Has something happened with the mortgage?" "Nothing like that," Sandra says, her voice brightening. "Actually, I have amazing news. Remember that property in Oakhurst we discussed? The owners just dropped the price by 15%. It's perfect for you, 3 acres, that gorgeous view of the mountains, and it's just 10 minutes from the park entrance." For the first time in days, I feel something other than dread. Is it still within my budget? With the price reduction? Absolutely. Sometimes the universe makes a decision clear. She pauses, then laughs. "And wait until you hear what the locals call that ridge, Independent Ridge." I find myself laughing with her. The name couldn't be more perfect. I want to see it, this weekend, if possible. I'll set it up, Sandra promises. After we hang up, I stand at my window, looking out at the city lights. For a moment, I can almost see it, my cabin on that ridge, a place that belongs solely to me, built with money I earned through my own talent and determination. The doorbell rings, shattering my reverie. It's nearly 1 a.m. I peer through the peephole and see my mother standing in the hallway holding a wine bottle. I open the door without greeting her. She steps inside, presenting the bottle like an offering. Matthew's Reserve Cabernet, 1,989. She says, "From the year you were born. We've been saving it for a special occasion." The bottle's label bears our family crest, the one that never quite felt like it belonged to me. The wine inside is nearly black in the dim light, dense and valuable. "This is just the beginning of what you'll receive if you invest in the family," she continues, setting the bottle on my counter. "A case of reserve wines every year. Your name on a plaque in the tasting room. Your children's future secured." The calculation of it all, bringing this bottle in the middle of the night, the implicit bribe, ignites something in me. "My future isn't for sale," I say quietly, "not even to my family." Mother's smile falters. "Don't be dramatic, Clarissa. This is about legacy." "No, it's about Dominic. It always has been. We've always supported both our children equally." The lie hangs between us, so blatant it almost takes physical form. 3 decades of seeking their approval flash through my mind. The academic achievements, the career successes, the financial discipline, all in pursuit of the recognition Dominic received simply for existing. "I think you should leave," I say. She reaches for the wine bottle, but I place my hand over hers. "Leave the wine. I might need it while I'm signing the papers for my cabin." The next morning at work, I find James at the coffee machine. Without preamble, I ask, "Can you help me draft an email?" "Threatening to quit already?" He jokes, then sees my expression. "What's going on?" I explain the situation while we walk back to his office. He listens without interruption, without judgment. When I finish, he simply nods and opens his laptop. "Family financial boundaries email," he says, typing. "Let's make this crystal clear without burning bridges you might want later." For the next hour, we craft a message that's professional, direct, and unambiguous. No emotional appeals, no justifications. Just clear statements of my financial autonomy and the consequences of further interference. "This is perfect," I say when we finish. "Thank you for helping me." "That's what friends do," James says simply. That evening, I call Sandra and schedule the cabin viewing for Saturday afternoon, the exact time of my family's reunion. While on the phone, I send the email James and I crafted to my entire family. The moment after I hit send, a weight lifts from my shoulders. At my dining table, I create a detailed spreadsheet comparing the financial returns of investing in my cabin versus the vineyard, property appreciation rates, rental income potential, tax advantages. The numbers don't lie, my cabin is objectively the better investment. My phone rings. It's my bank. "Miss Matthews? This is Eliza Cooper from First Sierra Bank. I understand you've been working with Mountainside Financial on your cabin purchase, but I wanted to introduce myself. We specialize in vacation properties in the Yosemite area and can offer you significantly better terms than your current pre-approval." I smile as I add this new information to my spreadsheet. The universe does indeed seem to be making the decision clear. On Saturday evening, I drive through the iron gates of Matthew's Vineyard. That day I went to visit my new property, and since I gathered the necessary documents, I went to confront my family. The gravel crunches under my tires as I park beside a row of familiar vehicles. Through the tasting room windows, I can see them all already seated around the massive oak table. My parents, Dominic, Aunt Martha, Uncle Robert, the family lawyer. On the table in front of my empty chair sits a stack of LLC documents, waiting for my signature. I straighten my shoulders and reach for my briefcase containing my cabin's pre-approval letter, my financial analysis, and the deed reservation for my property on Independent Ridge. Time to show them exactly what I've learned about investments. I stand at the head of the massive oak table that has witnessed 4 generations of Matthew's family gatherings. Everyone's eyes are on me, some curious, furious due to being late, others wary, a few downright hostile. Aunt Martha fiddles with her pearl necklace. Uncle Robert drums his fingers against his coffee mug. Dominic sits directly opposite me, arms crossed, jaw set. The manila folder in my hands contains 10 years of Vineyard financial reports that took me 3 sleepless nights to compile. I've highlighted the key sections in yellow, impossible to miss or dismiss. Thank you all for inviting me, I say, my voice steadier than it's ever been in this room. Before we discuss any investment in Dominic's tasting room expansion, I'd like to review the Vineyard's actual performance. I lay out the first report, sliding copies toward each family member. For the past decade, the Matthews Vineyard has operated at a profit margin of less than 2%. That's significantly below industry standard. Dad shifts in his chair. Mom's smile tightens. In 2019, there was actually a loss of $35,000. I continue, making deliberate eye contact with each person around the table. And in 2021, despite record tourism in the valley, profits were only $12,000. Aunt Martha glances at Dominic, her eyebrows pulling together in silent question. Last year's harvest yielded 20% fewer grapes than projected, I say, placing another document on the table. Yet the projection for this year claims a 30% increase with no explanation for the turnaround. Those numbers don't tell the whole story, Dominic interrupts, his voice cutting across the room. You've never cared about the family legacy. You don't understand what it takes to run a vineyard. You just sit in your fancy office drawing pictures of buildings while I'm working the land every day. The room falls silent. I wait, expecting Dad to jump to Dominic's defense as he always has. Instead, Uncle Robert clears his throat. Actually, I recall Clarissa trying to learn about the vineyard operations when she was younger. He looks directly at Dad. Wasn't she the one who kept asking to help with the harvest? To learn about fermentation? Dad's face reddens. That's right, Aunt Martha says, her voice gentle but firm. I remember Clarissa asking me about bookkeeping for the vineyard when she was in high school, said she wanted to help with the business side. I was told it wasn't my place, I say quietly. That Dominic would handle the vineyard business. Mom leans forward. That was years ago, Clarissa. This is about now, about family loyalty. Is it loyalty to invest in a business I was never allowed to participate in? I ask. A business that, according to these numbers, hasn't been profitable enough to sustain itself for over a decade? Several relatives exchange glances. The atmosphere in the room shifts perceptibly. Grandmother Helen, who has been silent until now, reaches across the table to touch my hand. Would you consider a smaller investment, dear, just to keep peace in the family? I hesitate. Would a token contribution maintain relationships while protecting my dreams, or would any compromise simply enable more demands in the future? The cabin plans flash through my mind, my own piece of land, my own legacy. Before I can answer, my phone buzzes. Elaine's name appears on the screen. Excuse me, I say, stepping away from the table. I need to take this. Clarissa, Elaine says, her voice crisp and professional. I'm sorry to interrupt your family gathering, but we have an emergency with the Westridge project. The client is demanding immediate revisions to the East Wing before Monday's presentation. Relief washes through me. We'd planned this call a lifeline if the family pressure became too intense. I understand, I reply, keeping my voice appropriately concerned. I'll be there as soon as I can. When I return to the table, expressions range from disappointment to suspicion. I'm sorry, I announce. There's an emergency at work. I need to leave immediately. This is more important than your job, Dad insists. We need an answer today, Mom adds. Dominic slams his hand on the table. This is exactly why the vineyard is struggling, because no one in this family is willing to sacrifice anything for its success. His face flushes dark red. You think I haven't put everything I have into this place? We're drowning in debt. The bank is threatening foreclosure if we don't show major improvements by next quarter. The room falls silent. Several relatives stare at Dominic with new awareness. Foreclosure? Uncle Robert repeats. You never mentioned that. Why would my $100,000 make a difference if things are that dire? I ask quietly. Dominic doesn't answer. The question hangs in the air between us. I think we all need time to process this new information. Aunt Martha says carefully. Perhaps we should reconvene next weekend, after everyone's had a chance to review the numbers Clarissa provided. Dad opens his mouth to object, but Mom places a hand on his arm. That's reasonable, she says, though her eyes flash with frustration. We'll meet here at the vineyard next Saturday, for a final decision. As I gather my papers, I catch Grandmother Helen watching me, her weathered face thoughtful. She gives me a single, almost imperceptible nod. I walk out of the dining room with my head high, the knowledge of my scheduled cabin viewing the following morning a secret strength carrying me forward. The final blow comes next week on Saturday. I arrive at the vineyard with the sun casting long shadows across the rows of grapevines. The tasting room doors stand open, welcoming the cool autumn breeze that carries the scent of fermenting grapes and freshly tilled soil. My hands grip the steering wheel tighter as I spot Dominic's truck parked beside our parents' sedan. They're waiting for me inside. I can feel it. Dad rises from his seat at the tasting room's oak table when I enter, his smile too wide, too practiced. Mom fusses with a tray of cheese and crackers, avoiding my eyes. Dominic stands by the window, watching the vineyard workers tend to the morning harvest. Clarissa. Dad gestures to the empty chair. We were hoping you'd join us for breakfast before the family arrives later. I set my leather portfolio on the table but remain standing. I'm not hungry. Dominic turns from the window, straightening his vineyard logo polo shirt. We've been talking, and we have a special proposal for you. Mom slides into the chair beside Dad, finally meeting my gaze. We know how much your financial independence means to you, so we've adjusted our offer. An exclusive family arrangement, Dad adds, sliding a folder toward me. Instead of 10% ownership for your investment, we're offering 15%. I flip open the folder, scanning the new ownership agreement. The text blurs slightly as anger rises in my throat. 15%. Dominic repeats, his voice practiced, smooth. That's a 50% increase in your stake, Clarissa. No one else in the family is getting these terms. Dad leans forward, elbows on the table, fingers steepled. $100,000 for 15% ownership in a vineyard that's been in our family for 4 generations? Your great-grandfather would be proud to see you stepping up, Mom says, touching my wrist. Family supporting family. The subtext hangs heavy in the air. Refusing means choosing money over family. I close the folder slowly, gathering my thoughts. My heart hammers against my ribs, but my voice remains steady when I finally speak. I've already invested my money. The silence that follows stretches taut between us. Mom's fingers retreat from my wrist. What do you mean? Dominic demands, crossing the room in 3 quick strides. I unzip my portfolio and remove a stack of photographs, laying them one by one on the table. I bought a cabin in Oakhurst last week, 2 acres with views of Yosemite. The first photo shows a rustic A-frame nestled among towering pines. The second captures the panoramic mountain vista from the back deck. The third displays the deed with my name printed across it. You bought property without telling us? Mom whispers, her fingers hovering over the photos. Just like you discussed my finances without telling me. I meet her gaze, unflinching. I've invested in my own legacy, one I built myself. Dad's face darkens. This is incredibly selfish, Clarissa. Your brother has had every advantage I never did. I finish for him, and he's still asking for more. The tasting room door swings open as Uncle Robert arrives with Aunt Judith and grandmother. More family members filter in behind them, carrying potluck dishes for the reunion lunch. I hadn't expected so many so early. Perfect timing. Dominic forces a smile for the newcomers while hissing under his breath. We're not done discussing this. Actually, we are. I turn toward my extended family, raising my voice slightly. Since everyone's here, I'd like to share something important about the vineyard expansion. The room quiets as I retrieve my laptop from my portfolio. Opening a financial analysis spreadsheet, I connect to the tasting room's wall-mounted display. I've reviewed the vineyard's finances for the past decade. I begin, clicking through charts showing declining profit margins despite increased production. Based on current debt load and market projections, the tasting room expansion would require 5 investors at $100,000 each to become profitable within 5 years. Quote, Uncle Robert steps closer to examine the numbers. 500,000? Dominic said you'd need just 1 or 2 investors. Dominic lurches forward. Her numbers are wrong. She doesn't understand the business. Which numbers are wrong specifically? I ask, scrolling through the detailed analysis. The overhead costs you provided to the bank last quarter? Or the profit projections you shared with potential investors last month? Dominic's mouth opens and closes, no words emerging as he realizes I've accessed the same financial records he used to secure his business loan. These numbers contradict each other. I continue, highlighting discrepancies between documents. Either the vineyard is struggling more than you've admitted, or you've misrepresented its potential to investors. Uncle Robert removes his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Maybe it's time to consider professional vineyard management instead of more family investment. The room erupts in murmured conversations. I catch grandmother's gaze across the crowd, expecting disappointment. Instead, she offers a slight nod, her eyes clear with something that might be respect. Later that evening, as I drive back to my condo, my phone buzzes with texts about rumors that 3 potential investors have withdrawn their interest in the vineyard. My parents haven't called or messaged since I left the reunion. When my phone chimes again at midnight, I expect another angry family member. Instead, Dominic's name appears with a message. We need to talk privately. I have a new proposal. I set the phone down without replying, watching city lights shimmer through my window. Whatever his new proposal might be, I'll face it on my terms, not his. For the first time in my life, that feels like enough. Based on current debt load and market projections, the tasting room expansion would require 5 investors at $100,000 each to become profitable within 5 years. Quote, Uncle Robert steps closer to examine the numbers. 500,000? Dominic said you'd need just 1 or 2 investors. Dominic lurches forward. Her numbers are wrong. She doesn't understand the business. Which numbers are wrong specifically? I ask, scrolling through the detailed analysis. The overhead costs you provided to the bank last quarter? Or the profit projections you shared with potential investors last month? Dominic's mouth opens and closes, no words emerging as he realizes I've accessed the same financial records he used to secure his business loan. These numbers contradict each other. I continue, highlighting discrepancies between documents. Either the vineyard is struggling more than you've admitted, or you've misrepresented its potential to investors. Uncle Robert removes his glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Maybe it's time to consider professional vineyard management instead of more family investment. The room erupts in murmured conversations. I catch grandmother's gaze across the crowd, expecting disappointment. Instead, she offers a slight nod, her eyes clear with something that might be respect. Later that evening, as I drive back to my condo, my phone buzzes with texts about rumors that 3 potential investors have withdrawn their interest in the vineyard. My parents haven't called or messaged since I left the reunion. When my phone chimes again at midnight, I expect another angry family member. Instead, Dominic's name appears with a message. We need to talk privately. I have a new proposal. I set the phone down without replying, watching city lights shimmer through my window. Whatever his new proposal might be, I'll face it on my terms, not his. For the first time in my life, that feels like enough.